So next up is Liv Arnesen. This is an incredible person, okay? Her journey across the Antarctic by ski and windsail in about 100 days, sometimes in the face of winds that blew up to 100 miles an hour, was just one of her astonishing achievements. In '92, Arnesen led the first unsupported all-women's expedition across the Greenland ice cap, and in '94 she became the first woman to ski solo to the South Pole. Mad woman. And here's the best part. She's a former school teacher, and now she's a grandma and a role model and a motivational speaker. Welcome to ideacity.
Thank you. I grew up in Norway. Norway is a tiny country. We have few heroes, and they're all linked to expedition and exploration. So instead of fairy tales, I grew up with stories about Nansen, the man that crossed the Greenland ice cap, drifted towards the North Pole in a ship, Roald Amundsen, the first man that skied to the South Pole, and so and so. And also a recent explorer and adventurer, Thor Heyerdahl, with the Kon-Tiki expedition. You might know him. And then you also might recognize the fleet in front of me. That's the first dream I can ever remember I had about long trips. And my father and I had brought me to the cinema to watch the documentary about the Kon-Tiki expedition. And at that time, I was 6 years old, and in my head, I had this dream of sailing around on all oceans to meet kids with different colors. That dream lasted a year. We went on holiday to Denmark on a ship, and I got seasick, so there was no more dream about open oceans. I got the dream about the South Pole when I was 2.5 years older than that. I read a book about Roald Amundsen's trip to the South Pole. My parents are outdoors people. My mother is 81 and is still an excellent cross-country skier, so I guess I got it in with my genes. And my father is still a good storyteller. And when I read the book, they still remember me reading that book because I was obsessed by long ski trips. And I didn't realize that was something wrong with dreaming about the South Pole until I got 12 years old. Then I was on a school trip to Germany with my school brass band, and I think it was 10 about my girlfriends. We were sitting in a room exchanging dreams. And all my friends, they were dreaming about big house, handsome husband, fancy car, and so and so. And I was probably a quite naive 12-year-old girl because I was thinking, how boring, you know, dream about something would come automatically when you grow up. Well, I learned my lesson. It didn't come that easy, but when it came to my turn to share my dream, I said, well, my dream is to ski to the South Pole. I still remember their reaction. Was I stupid? This was a boy's dream. It was impossible. This was the beginning of the 60s. So, it took years before I articulated that dream again. I was 41 when I started my expedition to the South Pole in '94. It's family things, and at one point the time would come right, and it was fantastic to be there. And having been dreaming of it for so many years. And I probably was mentally more prepared than I had anticipated, reading about all sufferings, about the men's stories. And I think I realized after I reached the pole that I think men overdo, their stories a little bit. It's very cold and it's very hard, and I think it's, when you start on a ski trip to the North Pole and the South Pole, it's obvious it's cold and it's obvious it's hard work. Why complain? So I'll bring you to the... But I also had been skiing for, crossing long trips before I went to the South Pole. But I learned kind of a lesson very early on that trip. After a week, I came into an area with high sastrugies or snowdrift. It was just like skiing on a frozen ocean. And my sled weighed 100 kilos, so I had to pull it over and just run because I had the sled in a rope just to avoid it to hit my heels. And I started to get irritated. Damn sled, you know, and the snowdrifts, and I think you all have experienced that when you're angry at something, you use a lot of energy. And the third day I was laying in the tent thinking, Liv, you can't ski here wearing and swearing for 50, 60 days. You will get exhausted when you reach the South Pole. So then I told myself, or was sort of thinking, okay, from tomorrow I will imagine that I ski in a gallery with modern art. And that changed my sort of days totally. I saw figures in the snow, I saw figures in the skies, and my mind went here and there. And I also didn't get my radio to work, so I actually didn't talk to anybody for 50 days on that expedition. And later I learned that that was a privilege. I think I sort of charged my batteries for the rest of the life in that expedition. I reached the South Pole Christmas Eve, 1994. And I think that's the best Christmas present I ever had and will have. I realized that because when I get more and more energy coming closer to the pole. And at that point, I promised myself, I was a high school teacher at that point, I will share this story, how much energy I have, how much joy I have to have a dream or to have a sort of a goal to work towards far ahead. And I also had started to write a management book for young people, but I realized when I came home that the young people that need sort of a push don't read books like that. But I started dream lessons, and I remember I got a card from one of my students, and he said, "Liv, thank you for the dream lessons. Now I realize that I don't have to become a lawyer like my dad." So I think that was good. After a year or two, I got a letter from Anne Bancroft. She's an American explorer living in Minnesota. She asked me if I would like to join her crossing the Antarctic continent and make a curriculum on internet to show how dreams can come true. And that was perfect. It was almost like hoogity-boogity, I would say. So we made a plan. We wanted to be the first women crossing the Antarctic continent, making the biggest internet education program on the internet, remain friends on the other side, and have fun. And we put all those two objectives because we realized even we have a lot of similarities. Anne is also a former school teacher. We were a little bit different. So we noticed that in the planning, and that it was because we had the time pressure from the first day on this expedition. So it's always good to have back in your head when it's starting gotten a little irritated to think about that we are going to become friends, be friends on the other side. And we were talking about Mars and NASA here. We were also test persons for NASA, so we were answering questions 40 minutes every Sunday, and we were interviewed by psychologists when we come across. And we are still working on projects, so you see there was sort of a happy ending there. The route was 3,000 kilometers crossing the continent, and we have a window of 100 days. The summer is short in Antarctica. So we have to practice. We needed help from Mother Nature. Here we are sailing on Great Slave Lake, further north here. And here we have started at Queen Maud Land. We were sailing, but there was also a special summer in Antarctica because Antarctica is the most windful continent in the world. But at that time, we were in the doldrums a lot. So I just have to show you how at that time we had that was the toughest day in Antarctica. We were far behind schedule. We called CNN twice a week. We were supposed to be the different news, the fun news on CNN that winter. But we were far behind, and there was no wind. And we had just talked to CNN. You could see on Annie's closing the sat phone, and the Atlanta, CNN Atlanta invited a meteorologist into the studio that could tell us that there was no wind, And we had also got reports from a team in Minneapolis that 3 million kids in 116 countries was on and had registered on the educational part, so that was great. But we couldn't really enjoy it because we were very focused on the crossing. And we had also asked the youngest kids to make wind songs and wind dances to bring the wind back to Antarctica. And we made a decision: if we arrived later to the South Pole than the 17th of January, we felt it was irresponsible to continue and would abandon the crossing. But here is how the saddest day in Antarctica ended. Okay, we reached the South Pole just after midnight, January the 16th, and continued. Here is, and we got a lot of press thanks for to the call to CNN, and then we got that number. Anne and I decided to continue combining education and adventures. We actually had been in 2002. We kayaked from Grand Portage through, and all the way to St. Lawrence River. So I've been in the nearby Toronto. We do have different educational programs. And on the crossing, we had a multidisciplinary about Antarctica. We have conflict resolution, Dare to Dream, and we also have a plan in 2011. We are planning to, because I think this is a safe place to share a big dream. We are going back to Antarctica. That's the 100 years anniversary for the first man to reach the pole. And Anne and I are bringing one woman from each continent to the South Pole. And the main focus in the curriculum will become water. There's been a lot of talking about water here today. And so we were emphasizing water. So we all know that's a global problem. And we all know, the trouble. A child dies every 22nd of the consequences of polluted water or the lack of water. But we will focus on solutions. And we do have the solutions. We all know that we have the solutions. So our goal is to communicate or use the expedition as a catalyst or a sensation to get the curriculum spread out. And I hope that there are people in the audience that can help me with that and exchange ideas. So we will have an 80-day expedition. We hope to have a team around all the people from all the women from different continents. We actually were searching for a native Canadian. We have been searching for native Canadian for 2 years, but we couldn't find any. So we have decided to bring a Chinese on the team instead. And the water issue is probably bigger in China than it is in Canada. We have Bachendri, she's to the right. She's the first Indian woman climbing Mount Everest, and Bancroft. And Lisa, she's a Maori woman from New Zealand, a geologist. Irina is a photographer from Russia. And Kim is, she's coming from townships in Cape Town, has been a very talented students, and are coming into the Nelson Mandela organization for promising or talented students. We will have one from South America and also hopefully one from China. I have one one video. We will make a documentary about this trip, the planning, and also how we communicate with children. So we have a teaser. So I just brought a teaser for the documentary here.
I think this is bigger than I ever imagined.
Our goal, I think, would be to bring awareness and to show people that we need to make a difference and we need to impact and motivate each other, have an impact on each other's lives to really bring about change in the world.
Nothing is impossible. The limitation is only in mind. Once you make up your mind, you can do anything.
I think the strength in the group is the values that we all share, the passion that we have. Some more so for the physical side than others, but I think at a really fundamental level we believe in people and we believe in the human spirit and being able to achieve things and change people's attitudes. That is the strength.
We'll tell other women also this is also possible to develop that can-do spirit.
And I think that we'll make a very big impact, hopefully, in the world and in raising awareness on the challenges we face, especially as women.
Change the attitude, to change the vision, to change the consciousness. And when you are going right direction and you do one step at a time, then you will be there, that's for sure.
So I really forgot about to ask to tell you about the challenge, because we want to communicate with 50 million. That's our goal, to communicate with 50 million young people. We communicated with 3 million in 2000, and that was the beginning of internet. So our goal is to communicate with 50 million young people, or 2 million classroom. And our goal, we also hope that we create a movement of young people helping young people in cooperation with UNICEF and other organizations when we reach the South Pole in February 2012. And so please, I'm sure there are people in the audience that can give me some advice and also maybe have some good ideas. So thank you so much.